Prolactin is a hormone that can negatively affect a man's libido, motivation, and quality of life. So in this video, I'm actually going to explore a novel way to potentially suppress prolactin that does not require the use of zinc, vitamin E, vitamin B6, and some of the commonly used drugs like cabergoline, bromocriptine, and compounds like that. So in this video, what I'm going to do is look into a particular herb known as Selfheal, or Prunella vulgaris, as a novel way to suppress prolactin levels. Let's take a look at some of the dangers of prolactin when elevated in the human body. Now, prolactin is notorious for destroying libido and sexual functioning, and that is because prolactin can actually extend the refractory period. Basically, what that means is that it can suppress the ability to get a second erection and for the ability to orgasm again in men. And so this can negatively affect a man's sexual desire, motivation for sexual activity, and directly suppress libido and arousal in the brain. In addition, prolactin, when elevated, can also indirectly lower testosterone, and that is due to its suppressive effect on GnRH secretion. And so when prolactin levels are very high, this can actually lead to a reduction in testosterone. We also see a reduction in motivation, and that is because prolactin is heavily governed by dopamine. And by looking at individuals with very high levels of prolactin, oftentimes they actually have low levels of dopamine binding at the dopamine D2 receptor. And by having high levels of prolactin, this could indicate that the individual may have low levels of dopamine. In addition, very high levels of prolactin can also lower a man's mood. I mean, I've seen a number of guys that have come to me that I've worked with as clients, and they've come to me with, low motivation, low mood, just feeling depressed, and they just view the world as very flat. Well, I guess not flat. They're acting in a way that they feel just flat all the time and no motivation, and they just don't have any thrill left in their life, which is a serious concern. It's something that we really need to consider. And then finally, the other danger of excess prolactin is for its ability to increase the risk of developing gynecomastia or man boobs. Now, obviously, prolactin is not the only hormone that's responsible for man boob and gynecomastia formation. However, it does play a very powerful driving factor that can contribute to gynecomastia. So now you're probably wondering, what is Selfheal extract? Now, this study here was titled Prunella vulgaris, which is Selfheal, by the way, a review of its ethnopharmacology, phytochemistry, quality control, and pharmacological effects. Now, the authors noted that Prunella vulgaris is a perennial herb with medicinal and edible homology used for thousands of years. Now, Prunella vulgaris, or Selfheal, is bitter, acrid, cold, and belongs to the liver and gallbladder meridians. Now, modern pharmacological studies have shown that Selfheal has a wide range of pharmacological activities, including anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, antibacterial, and antiviral effects, as well as immune regulatory effects, anti-hypertensive, hypoglycemic, lipid-lowering, antioxidant, free radical scavenging, liver protection, sedative, and hypnotic effects. So we can see that what this herb that I'm referring to, potentially looking at it as a treatment for high prolactin, has all these other beneficial effects and other pharmacological properties. So the study that I really want to emphasize and highlight in this video, and this is the reason why you're probably watching this video, is this study here. The study was titled The Mechanism of Selfheal Extract in Treating Hyperprolactinemia. Now, hyperprolactinemia is a state characterized when prolactin levels are outside the reference range, they're too high. And by the way, guys, if you do want to get your blood work done and you do want to assess your hormones and things like that, do check out Merrick Health. You'll see that linked down below in the video description, where I have my own panel that I've built. So you can use that panel and use the code ergogenic to save on that blood test. So looking at the study breakdown, so the objective, Selfheal has been used for many years in hyperprolactinemia-induced galactorrhea, menstrual disorders, and dysgenesis with satisfactory curative effect. However, its mechanism is still unclear. The study intended to investigate the effect of Selfheal extract on hyperprolactinemia in vivo and in vitro in order to elucidate its mechanism of anti-hyperprolactinemia. Now, just taking a look at the dosages that they used in this particular study, this was a rat model and they used high dose 28 grams per kilogram, 14.4 grams per kilogram, and then 7.2 grams per kilogram. And what they were measuring was basically the effect on prolactin secretion, dopamine D2 receptor, and also dopamine transporter as well. Now, what they noted was that high and middle dose of Selfheal extract significantly reduced prolactin level in hyperprolactinemia rat compared with model group. Compared with normal control, 5 milligrams per mil and 10 milligrams per mil of Selfheal extract obviously inhibited prolactin secretion in MMQ cells that high expressed D2 receptor after 24 hours. So what they noted was that Selfheal extract markedly suppressed D2 receptor and DAT expression in PC12 cells and strongly expressed D2 receptor and DAT. And the conclusions were that Selfheal extract treated hyperprolactinemia through dopamine D2 receptor with a significant effect. Now, obviously this is not a human study, so we need to just, not get too excited, but it, is quite promising. And this is how research evolves, is that we start in, cell lines and then animal studies, and then we see how that can potentially translate to humans. So as I mentioned, the study Drawbacks, obviously it's an in vivo study, not a human study, or actually a cell line study, which has major limitations, whether or not it can actually translate to humans. If we look at the human equivalent dosage for the lowest dose, we're looking at about 1,167 milligrams per kilogram, which is a huge dose. And actually we can see that one thing I want to outline and illustrate is what is the active constituent found in this herb that is responsible for this particular effect. So what is the active constituent? Are there particular alkaloids present in the herb that have dopamine D2 agonistic effect? And is that responsible for its ability to lower prolactin? That is something that we need more data and we need more research on. Here's another interesting study. This study here was titled Prunella vulgaris attenuates pre-pulse inhibition deficit and attention disruption induced by MK801 in mice. And another interesting study hinting dopaminergic effects. Here, this study was titled Effect of D-amphetamine on pre-pulse inhibition of the startle reflex in humans. And the rationale for this study here was pre-pulse inhibition of the startle reflex is attenuated in animals after administration of D-amphetamine and other drugs that stimulate mesolimbic dopamine activity. So again, what I'm trying to do here is connect the dots, look into the mechanism of action, because we can see in that previous study, Prunella vulgaris also attenuates pre-pulse inhibition deficit and attenuation disruption, which may indicate that it does indeed have a dopaminergic effect, somewhat like D-amphetamine, or maybe one of the alkaloids present in the herb has a effect that is somewhat similar to D-amphetamine for its ability to inhibit pre-pulse inhibition. Now, the last point I really want to emphasize here is the worst way to lower prolactin levels in men, and that is to megadose vitamin B6. Now, vitamin B6, what I call a megadose, is anything above 100 milligrams of the P5P form daily. And the reason why I personally think this is the worst way to lower prolactin is due to vitamin B6's ability, or the ability for this particular B vitamin, to eventually become toxic in the body. Now, vitamin B6 is one of the B vitamins that can actually accumulate over time and reach toxicity levels and lead to actually irreversible nerve damage. And can actually cause neuropathy as well. And if you are probably wondering, where's the research on this? Well, if you literally look into vitamin B6 toxicity groups, there are many groups on Facebook, forums and things like that where people are talking about vitamin B6 toxicity. And people can get vitamin B6 toxicity just from 100 milligrams a day of vitamin B6, even for as little as 6 to 8 weeks. So this is something that I think that we should be avoiding if we're trying to lower prolactin, and look into other modalities such as suppressing serotonin, agonizing the D2 receptor through other modalities and methods, such as compounds that I've mentioned before, like bromantine, 9-MBC, vitamin E, and some other compounds, which I've also explored in my Limitless program. So do check out that link down below if you want to look into ways to optimize all your hormones, neurotransmitters, and things like that. Do consider checking out my new men's energy program, Limitless. We go through all sorts of biohacks like this to explore. So if you did enjoy this video, please do like the video. Please do share the video around. I do want to look into and promote other ways to decrease prolactin, because this is often an issue that a lot of men are facing, is high prolactin. Bear in mind, we also need to consider addressing other hormones as well. So for example, thyroid, because thyroid hormone, when we have elevated TSH, that can also increase prolactin. Growth hormone can also play a role in prolactin. So we need to look at the bigger picture and not just rely on vitamin B6. And so I think this new research on Selfheal extract, or Prunella vulgaris, is quite exciting. It's quite promising. However, we will need some further research to really accurately determine whether or not this is a powerful treatment for high prolactin.